Welcome to this episode of Hear It From a Huskie. I'm Dr. Laurie Fiorenza, and today I am joined by Brendan Culleton, a music teacher and club sponsor here at Oak Park and River Forest High School, as well as Justin Jones, a musician here at the high school. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Well, let's dig in with some questions here. So what inspired the creation of Huskie Records, and how has it evolved since you started it?
So Huskie Records, the idea of that is it's a sort of informal musician club. It's a sort of amateur musicians club where students will meet and get to talk about, learn about, help each other learn, and just make music together, utilizing all the resources the school has to help them with their own musical pursuits. We meet every week. We do all sorts of projects. So the idea is it's sort of just a meeting place, kind of like an open lab space where students have access to meet other musicians, because so much of music learning is, social. So a space for that kind of stuff, also a space to utilize resources and be able to, we've accumulated so much sort of general music equipment at the school, both microphones, recording studios, and a space to give a space for students to be able to use that equipment in order to make their own music and meet other people doing it. I took a lot of the ideas from York High School that's won a bunch of awards. They call it Amateur Musicians Club. And they've done a whole bunch of stuff with that. And I sort of took a lot of ideas from that because they do the same thing, similar idea, where they meet after school, work with a bunch of students. They always have a bunch of bands form out of that group, which is always really cool. And then their end of the year project is putting together a group album. So that's sort of been the inspiration for it. As it's gotten started, that process has evolved a little bit. We're putting on the big thing that's come out of this is we've started putting on a showcase of student music, which has been sort of our way at this school to put on and showcase the music that our students are making, give them opportunities to make music with each other, and also tie that in with career implications, actually give them experience working in the music industry, what it's like to be a performer, what it's like to have to headline, and these sort of real world skills that they need to be able to pick up in order to succeed in a 21st century music industry. So it's sort of all of those things together was really been the inspiration and how it got started.
Okay. Justin, have you been a part of the club this entire time?
So I was there on the time the club first started. I remember going to the first couple of meetings, but I wasn't actively in it because I was in a different club at the time.
Okay.
But I will say around junior year, I started becoming more regular. I would go to the club more often, and I just found myself there every Monday after school. I was at the club. Yeah. And I found myself kind of growing an attachment to the club because these are all people that are in the same boat as me. They love music, and that for me that's my life right there. So I just found myself really connected to the club and the people in it.
Yeah. So you've seen it evolve and change over time.
Yes.
And probably, as you just mentioned, yourself and other students have changed. That's amazing.
Yes.
Great. So can you guys tell me, there's also other offshoots of this club. One is the house band. Now, that sounds like an exciting project. What inspired the formation of this, and what kind of music do you typically focus on during your performances?
So the house band is sort of a pop rock ensemble, and what we'll do is we'll work on, it's a group of guitars, bass, piano, or keys, do some synth stuff, vocals, and drums. Sort of plays music that is not normally seen in band, orchestra, choir. It's essentially like a pop rock group. So I like to compare it to a jobbing band, like the kind of band that plays covers at weddings or corporate events, where the goal is to learn music quickly, put on performances, and sort of learn the process of being a gigging musician and learn how to perform. That one came to me after watching some students perform, and I'm just especially coming off of the pandemic, watching how students interact with each other, I sort of saw a lot of, I don't want to sound mean saying this, but YouTube guitarists, if that makes sense.
Okay.
They learn everything in isolation, right? They've just spent so much time playing on their own. They don't know sort of the intricacies of performing live, where they have to work with other musicians and listen and interact. That's such an important skill as we're trying to build up potential musicians or just lifelong lovers of music. Yeah. The ability to interact with other people musically is such an important skill. I was so the way we fix this is they just have to play together. I was
that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, right? I was trained as band director. I know how to get people to play in time together. I know how to get people to listen to each other. So I was while it might not be the most common school ensemble, the idea of sort of a pop rock group, bunch of guitars, basses, drums, piano, and vocalists. So we're going to focus on how to play together and how to put on a good show. And that was sort of the main idea of what we're going for with that, right?
Yeah. How do you pick the music?
For the most part, students pick it.
Okay.
So I think part of this too is my space as a teacher in that kind of club has to be very well thought out, because there's not really when you think of a marching band, there's a marching band director. right?
Yeah.
When you think of like orchestra, there's the maestro. We don't really have that in rock bands, right? Normally in a rock band, you think you've got your like lead person, lead singer, guitarist. They're in the band. They're a member of the band. They've got skin in the game, right? So as a teacher, I feel like I take more of a role as a producer.
Okay.
Right. Like my job is to help them put on a good show. It's like the George Martin of the Beatles. Right. Like my job is to help them put on a good show, help them figure out like, okay, like these are the tools we can use. This is how we do it as a, like in the pros. Here's like what I would do to make this work, and less about like, here's how we play this.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like I find myself trying to take that role a little bit as students pick the music. We've got a very adventurous group of students. I think you'd say they've picked all sorts of music. Of course, there's some like classics that show up in, it's definitely this year, the students have picked a lot more of like rock music, which is great, right? They don't, it's music we don't get to do at school a lot.
Justin, how do you pick music?
Honestly, so for me, it's like whatever's stuck in my head. I feel like weekly, it's always like a new song or like a song that's been stuck in my head for weeks. Like I remember during our first meeting of house band, we started talking over songs. We were, giving out ideas. And I remember this is one that we're actually bringing back for our show that's coming up, is Everlong by Foo Fighters. And I remember that came to me because it had been stuck in my head for like, I think around a month.
Oh gosh.
And I learned the song on my guitar. And then I was like, I really want to perform this song. And when the opportunity kind of like presented myself, I was like, we should do Everlong. And now I found myself now singing Everlong for the house band.
Do you have a favorite performance?
My favorite performance, I would say I love like rock and metal music. Okay. And I would say Metallica, I feel like all the time, just all the performances are great. I love how they kind of alter their songs, like so that the solos feel different. Mm-hmm. Everything feels kind of like new. When during all the performances.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So AMPT sounds like an interesting platform for our student musicians. Can you share some highlights from past festivals and tell me where people can see these performances?
So Huskie Records, that club puts on a yearly showcase that we call OPRFHS AMPT, and that's essentially a student-run, student-produced music festival. So students will, they'll design the lights, do all the graphic designs, promotion. Students are all the music, both covers and originals, as well as, writing all the sound, all the technical, all the business front of house jobs. Pretty much I'm there to manage the whole thing in proof spaces, but it's put on by students, right? And that's one of the ways we showcase student music. This is only our second year doing it, which is really awesome. But I don't know, Justin, like you were at the show last year. What do you think?
I remember, so the first show, that was like, when it came to like school shows, I was wondering all these things, like, who's going to be there? Mm-hmm. Is it going to go great? Is it going to go bad? But I remember being blown away from the energy the students were giving at the performance. It was like, they were playing their heart out, and it really got the crowd moving. Like we were all dancing. Oh, wow. I remember during like the slower songs, we were all just kind of like just swaying back and forth. We had our phone with the lights up. And
like a concert.
It was literally a concert in your own school. And I was like, this is crazy. Like we have all the talent that's in the room. We had these kids giving it their all, especially like newer performers. Like this is the first time on stage, and they were playing like wonderfully. Wow! And I remember just being blown away. It was an amazing performance.
That's wonderful. Justin, I would be really interested to know like how being a part of these different club opportunities has influenced your growth. And you mentioned at the beginning, like it's really developed you into a musician who wants to pursue this. Kind of talk a little bit about how that happened.
I would say the number one thing is that it made me realize that music isn't a solo job. It gets you to meet just so many people. I know right now I'm with one of my friends. We're getting ready for the summer. We're going to be doing gigs all around Oak Park. We plan on kind of making like a little band for the summer. Okay. Just so we can kind of like get out there and kind of get more performing acts. I know we're going to be releasing a bunch of EPs, like singles during the summer. And it's just like, I didn't realize that I'm going to be meeting a bunch of people. Yeah. New people, maybe I'll continue projects with like people that I already know. It's just gonna like get me out there, meeting a bunch of different people. And
when you head toward college or any other post-secondary opportunity, what are you hoping to do with the music?
Right now, I'm looking and majoring in sound engineering, not performance, just basically like studio, kind of like this. Okay. So I plan on being like the one behind the computer, kind of like making sure everything's right. I want to talk to the artist, like, hey, what do you need that I will do it for you? But like, what button do I need to press, basically?
Yeah, that's very important. And then just tell me something about an experience or achievement you've had in these clubs that has shaped you. as far as like just a person?
I would say, I remember to get into house band, it's kind of like you have to audition. So I remember house band was like one of my first auditions. So I was really nervous, but I feel like in the past, because I had done performances, it helped me get over that, like kind of like that stage fright. I remember the minute I sat down for the audition, all my kind of worry just went away. I remember this like feeling of like I'm in the zone, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
And it was just kind of like this like feeling like, you know, like this is what I do, and I'm gonna like try my best.
Yeah.
And then I ended up making house band, and I remember being really like excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Culleton, if there are students out there that are interested in music that maybe, you know, play in their house, play in their basement, their garage, how would you suggest they get involved in this opportunity?
They should come to room 1109 on Mondays after school, and we'll get them set up. I think, you know, if you're not at OPRF, obviously, because I don't know what our audience is. If you're not at OPRF, like just keep making music. It has never been easier to like put your music out into the world and like meet other musicians. You know, the internet and social media has made that just incredibly easy. We're like, we're in a world where it's just so easy to make music and put that out in the world, right? So like just do the thing. It's like so. That's like good. And it's the most terrifying thing too, right? Like I think we need to like fully understand that like writing your own music and putting it out in the world is like objectively, especially like as a, you know, high schooler, that is an absolutely terrifying step of expressing yourself to do. But you just got to do it.
I think that's really good advice, because it is a life skill, learning how to get over your fear, meeting new people, engaging in different communities with different perspectives. And what you said at the very beginning kind of ties to, I think, a really good high school experience, and that's learning how to not be solo, but work in community.
I always tell our songwriting students, right, like, and my songwriting students when we're in class, I'm always telling them, like, if you can, by the end of this class, write your own song and record it and share it to the world, like, really, there's nothing else the school can throw at you that is more terrifying than that.
Amazing. You know, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time, and this has been so interesting. I can't wait to come to one of your performances.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Hear It From a Huskie. Stay tuned for more from our Huskie faculty and students making an impact.